Welcome to the Volunteer Youth Worker Podcast. Youth ministries rise and fall on the volunteers, so we are here to encourage and equip you. Join the conversation as we tackle the practical questions you are asking so you can help the next generation know Jesus.
All right, everyone. I am so thrilled to introduce you, if you do not know, my friend Lydia Kidd. Lydia, I have connected, and you can actually attest to this, I've connected a number of youth workers to you in our country of Canada that are asking these questions about student leaders and student leadership because of the work that you guys have been doing at your church as you've led in this world of student leadership. And so I'm thrilled that you get a chance to share with people, but why don't we start by just you introducing yourself. Tell everyone where you're coming from, who is Lydia Kidd, and where in the world, where do you work, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, I have the honor and privilege of working at Center Street Church in Calgary, Alberta. And so I've been on youth staff for about 6 years, but employed at the church for about 9, which is crazy.
What did you do before youth staff?
I worked in the cafe. We have a little cafe, so I got to work there for my high school years.
Fun.
Which was kind of cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I was my church's janitor during my high school years, and then I was the youth pastor. Yeah. So it's always nice to have a few different things. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah.
Okay. So you've been on staff for 6 years. Shout out. You've been through our coalition program as well, which is kind of fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I finished it in June.
Absolutely.
Which is crazy.
Congratulations on that. But now, as we get into the conversation on student leadership, I don't even know where or when I would have caught on to the work that you were doing, but somewhere along the lines, you started sharing a bit of your story. Maybe it was in one of the coalition classes of the work that you've got happening in student leadership at your church. And so maybe just fill people in broad strokes. When you think about student leadership, give us the different categories of how students are involved. So we think about like the kids in our youth ministries. How are they involved in leadership type roles at your church? What does that look like? Are there different programs? What's the scale of what you're doing this? How does that look?
Yeah, so we have like multiple different pockets of students leading in our church. It's kind of crazy. Our children's ministry is actually run like almost 50% of our volunteers for children's ministry are students between the grades of 6 to 12. And so they volunteer like crazy in children's. And then we also
Which
have
is intentional. So some churches and some ministries that are listening, it's like, yeah, we don't really, it's not that we're not encouraging it. It's not that we're encouraging it. It's just kind of like stuff like that naturally happens. It seems like you guys are actually celebrating the fact. How many kids are actually volunteering or how many teenagers are volunteering in your children's ministry total?
Yeah, there's like 240 plus, I think. There's more now than there's ever been, which is crazy.
That is wild.
It's super exciting to see, and they're so much fun. I love watching them like do worship because they're so energetic. And you have the 9 a.m. services, and you have all your adults that are like a little tired, and your students are like, yeah. It's great.
It is absolutely incredible. And I mean, there's and you guys that are listening, we're going to take a number of different directions here, but like we think about like camp ministry, you send kids off to camp, they lead in camp ministry. Teenagers are leading, younger kids. They're, like you said, they're leading kids in worship, teaching and all that kind of stuff. The things that happen in the spiritual lives of teenagers as they get a chance to take on these leadership roles is wild. And so 240 is mind boggling. And how that gets managed is so fascinating. So, okay. So that's one element of student leadership in your church. What's another one?
So we also do a program called Legacy. So that's our student leadership program that we run through our youth ministry. We started out about 3 years ago because we had this huge need of like, hey, what are youth actually struggling with? Like, what are they actually wanting to do? And so we wanted to do a youth ministry with youth instead of for youth. And that was really cool. So we have a leadership program. They do different classes. We teach on spiritual disciplines. We go through testimonies, how to build a testimony, and like how to share a testimony, and what does that look like, and then leadership characteristics of what does it mean to be a good leader in my community, but also in my church, in my school, in my family, and kind of those big areas too. So we do that
Okay,
as well.
and why did you guys go this direction? Why did you start this? Because you also have your regular youth programming that anybody can come to. So what differentiates this particular this legacy program?
So these are students that show huge, maybe not even huge, but leadership potential. And so we have a ministry of 200, well, about 300 and something students that come on a regular basis. And so it was like really big. And we wanted to be super intentional with students who are like, hey, I want to go deeper in my faith. I want to share my faith. I want to help in a lot of different ways. Like I want to help serve my ministry. I want to help serve my church. I want to help serve my school. And like, but how do I do that well? And so there was a handful of students the first year we did it that we walked with, and they wanted to do more. And it was really cool to watch them kind of grow in their faith. And but yeah, I think like the biggest thing that differentiates it is just who the kids are, of like, hey, I want to be more involved and I want to get more involved. And so it goes beyond youth. They have to be involved in a community group in order to be part of Legacy as well.
And your community groups are like your regular youth ministry program, small group, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So we do those Wednesday nights. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so then how do kids get into the Legacy program? Do you identify them? Do you chase them down? Do they raise their hand? Do you promote to them? Do you give them cash money to join? How do they get in?
Lots of bribes. No, I'm just kidding. We do it multiple different ways. We always shoulder tap. But then one of the cool ways that we do it is we ask our grade 12s who are graduating out of the program. It's like, hey, we want you to identify one person that you think has leadership potential that you can invite into this program next year. And so that's been cool to kind of see your grade 12s lean in a different way of like, hey, like who are the people that I'm going to invite in next year? And it's really funny because it's something that they get really stressed about as well, of like, I don't know any grade 9s. How am I gonna invite someone else in? And it's like, well, it's your opportunity to meet some. So that's kind of cool. But then it's a lot of shoulder tapping, and then we have students apply during the summer. We do rounds of interviews, and we ask them lots of questions about themselves, why they're interested in this. And so yeah.
Very, very cool. Okay, and so Legacy. We're probably going to talk a lot more about the Legacy program specifically. But is there anything else, as you think about your church internships or anything ministry-wise that you guys do around student leadership?
So something that hasn't happened yet, but we're excited about for the summer, is we're doing high school student interns. So we have students that are coming in to help run on most of our programming this summer, and so we're building out that program right now, which I'm really excited about. So I get to be part of that one. And then, yeah, I think it's mainly just, it's walking with students. We have like half of our tech team as well. Maybe not half, but a good chunk of our tech team is also like junior high school students as well. So like our summit nights, which is our youth worship nights that happen the first Wednesday of every month, 95% of our tech volunteers that volunteer during that night are youth, which is really cool. It's really awesome to see. Yeah. They run cameras, they floor direct. It's been awesome to watch.
That is wild. Okay. So let's go to the Legacy program. Walk us through. Okay, so we've got students. We think that'd be good. They got leadership potential. We want to kind of journey with them. You said, talked about, developing their faith a bit more. And so for lots of people that are listening, we can think about, okay, in light of our ministries, there are those kind of kids that seem like they are ready for more, or they're interested in more. Maybe they even vocalize it. I'm first fascinated by the fact that you make sure that they're still rooted in your core program. So it's not that they're growing out of the core program or that they're too big or too mature for the core program, something like that. So they reinforce the core program. They're connected to it. But then how did you figure out what is helpful to actually journey along with those student leaders? Like, what do they really need? If you were to talk to again, you're talking to a bunch of volunteers at ministries all across our country. And if you were to tell them, hey, your student leaders that are looking for more, this is the kind of stuff that I think they really need, what would you say? I
think the biggest thing is solid relationship. Like they need to be rooted, first of all, in their community, but then also having people. So we have coaches that come alongside. And it's like having a safe place of like, hey, I tried this and I think I failed and I think I didn't do well, but then being able to walk with someone and be like, hey, like, it's okay. I'm here to support you. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to be with you. And we're going to figure this out together, of having that safe environment of if I fail, I know it's okay because there's people who have my back. And I think that's been kind of the coolest part. And then also being able to ask, having people to mentor you and walk alongside you of like, hey, like, I have all these questions of like how I share my faith well, or how can I introduce or bring people into the church, or how can I use the gifts that I have to help the church or help my own community. And you have mentors and people to come alongside you and be like, hey, like these are some tangible ways. But then it's also, I'm going to wrestle through all of the bigger spiritual questions that I do have.
What would be the difference? So when you say that coach or that mentor that a student leader gets, what's the difference between that person and maybe just a generic's a weird way to say it, but like a small group leader on Wednesday nights for you guys? Because we've got small group leaders listening. So what is it that isn't happening that you would give those student leaders an additional coach?
So one of the reasons we do coaches the way that we do is because we want them to be super intentional, to help them form not only their leadership, but also continue to ask them good questions. And so their community group leader is very focused on like, hey, we're going to lead a community. We're going to have fun. We're going to talk about the Bible. We're going to go through all of this. But what we found is in our community groups, you had different kids walking with different things. And so you have one kid who's like super, super firm in their faith. And they're like, hey, like, I'm wrestling with big God questions. And then you had others that were like, hey, I'm brand new to the faith. And so the community group leader has an opportunity to also coach. We have lots of coaches that also are community group leaders. I just want to say that too. But this way they can just very intentionally walk with and train people on like, hey, like, these are some of the things that I've noticed about you as you lead. And so here's some of the feedback I have, but then also like answer some of those bigger questions too. So
Yeah, I think so. Let me repeat back, see if I'm catching it. So small group leaders, because the group is diverse in the sense of like they're at different places spiritually, when you get a coach as a student leader, that coach is their understanding of like, hey, our connection together is like pretty specific to you growing in your faith in these like intense, higher ordered ways, maybe? Would that be the way to say it? Yeah.
Okay. And so like, yeah. Because they can be like, you can have a community, like some of our community group leaders are coaching too. It's just it's just more commitment and more time, which is not always ideal. But.
And then I know you've got so much documentation. And so some of this you'll be able to share, which is kind of fun with the people that are listening. When you think about, okay, your student leadership program, what are the, like, you said a couple of them, but like, is it really clear in your mind what the outcomes are? What for a student leader? Like, hey, we're going to develop you in this, this, and this. Is that written out somewhere?
Yeah. So we kind of have like our main documentation, but I think some of the wins, which are really cool to see, is just them knowing how they can contribute to the church and how they can use their gifts and skills in then like grow in our church, but then also prepare them. So like if one day they leave, they know that they can step into a church and be like, hey, like I know how to floor direct for a worship service, or I know how to use a camera to help with your live stream, or I know how to run a children's small group, and so I can help jump in there. And so it's also preparing them not only for like how they lead themselves well now, but how they're leading others and themselves well in the future too. So I think those have been some of the biggest wins that we've seen. A lot of our students that graduated 2 years ago, they're all going out to Bible school right now. And so it's really cool. Like almost all of them are. I think there's a handful that aren't, but the majority of them are, which has really been quite awesome to watch them kind of just be more challenged and want to challenge themselves more and grow even deeper. And then I think the other win is just them learning how to lead themselves well. I think one of the biggest questions that students ask is how can I make an impact in my environment, and what kind of impact am I going to make? And this is a tangible way to be like, hey, this is the impact that you're making right now. You do have influence in your circle, in your community, and helping them to see that as well.
Okay, so how do you do that part?
The influence?
Yeah. What do you teach them, or what do you tell them, or what do you get them to read or whatnot?
So one of the coolest ways that we show them that is we bring them. These are just senior high students. Legacy is just senior high, and so we bring them to our junior high retreat, which just happened last week, and we get them to help in a lot of different ways. And so we're like, you guys lead by example, and the students that see you and you interact with, you will impact in a really amazing way. And so they get to. So one of the coolest ways that we've seen it happen is how we have built a really amazing culture, like a worship culture, where all of our students stand at the front. And so that we always bring our legacy students into that. And we're like, hey, like as you stand in the front, other students will join you. And it's been really cool to just watch that kind of happen and that take place. And then as well of like, hey, like as you are inviting students into the church, or like there's new students, like, hey, we want you to bring them into your communities. We want you to stand by the front and welcome in new students or new youth that come, and bring them to your community groups, and be their friends. And so it's really cool kind of to watch them do small things that actually help impact the bigger community.
Yeah. That's incredible. Okay, I love that. Okay, so there's that component to it. There's teaching them how to serve in local churches. And, it's interesting because I think in a lot of ways there is this gap. We think about our students and we're like, oh yeah, we want them to be involved in the overall church. And sometimes it's like, well, can the church become more welcoming for our students? I've heard that before from people. But the idea of like, oh, I wonder if we actually just put our students in a place that's helpful for the overall church, that naturally puts them in visible spots. I'm sure it helps shift the culture a little bit. And even as they go into, other places, the idea that they know how to do just practical skills around North American Canadian church ministry is wonderful. Like it's interesting. I had a university student, and he's like, yeah, like I know like how to run tech because I've run tech for my church for a while. And I'm like, oh, then that makes sense. You're in a new city, in a new place. Of course, like you can volunteer on the tech team. That's a great way of immediately building community. And, we've done this research, and if, you guys listening, you've probably heard us talk about renegotiating faith as a 2009 research project. And the idea of young adults reconnecting in new faith communities when they move to a new city, the thing that connects them is those relationships, but trying to figure out what's the right way to build that relationship to a new place. Serving is one of the best ways to do it because it's so, straightforward. Of course, there's a need there. And then you meet people that are on the team. I think that's beautiful. That's so wonderful. So you've got legacy students that are learning practical ministry skills for local churches. You've got them learning about how they're able to be influential, which is good. Are there other elements that come into this program that their coaches are trying to develop in them?
I think one of the biggest thing, and this is actually something I learned from you, is how to ask good questions. I think that's actually so important today. I know it's a bit weird, but I think it's like so important of like, hey, like how do I actually ask good questions? Because I sit there sometimes and I'm like, I don't even know if I know how to ask good questions. And so I was like, how can we help students learn to ask good questions in their current environments when it's like a safer place to ask good questions, and then go out and be like, okay, no, I'm going to ask some awesome things of other people and learn to be curious, because I think a lot of times we make a lot of assumptions. And so that's something that I've been really focused on this year. And like walking into this next year of some of the things we're going to train a little differently. I think it's been that. And then it's also been like, how do I manage conflict? That's been something that's come up a lot this year. And so it's like, hey, how can you help walk yourself through conflict? And how do you help walk others through conflict? And so that's been interesting. And will be interesting to kind of teach and learn more about as they.
Those are two really fantastic things. I would think on one level, I'm like, oh, student leadership, we're thinking about faith formation, all that kind of thing, how to do conflict resolution. At first pass, somebody listening is like, I don't know how those connect. Well, it's like, well, Jesus calls us to be peacemakers. And so this is actually a really important part of our faith. And so you teach as a part of your legacy experience, conflict resolution. That's interesting. How do you teach them about curiosity and asking better questions?
So we have this big book that they go through, and it has like a bunch of different spiritual disciplines. And then part of the book is this section where they have to meet with their coach once a month. And part of it is like, what are some of the questions that you have? And this is something that I took from actually the coalition, because this is something that I have to do for the coalition for my mentor meetings, is I have to come up with questions. And so I'm like, it's actually been a really cool challenge of like, hey, how can I be curious about my ministry and my faith and the other things that are going on in my life, and ask someone who has more experience than I do about these things? And it just kind of, it forces you in a way to kind of sit down and be like, okay, what are actually some questions of things that I actually want to know more about? And not just assume that you know what's going on, but like actually ask. And even if it's the answer that you were expecting, be like, no, okay, that was actually good for me to learn more about. So
yeah, that's great. And so you reference this book. So part of the legacy experience is students are walking through like a pretty sizable journal program, like that kind of thing. Is it like, I think about like my kids to go through Awana, like there's Awana books, or like I did Christian Service Brigade. Is that kind of like the idea? Do you get badges in this experience? Stickers,
no
maybe? No badges, no stickers?
I wish maybe one day we'll do stickers. No, they go through this big book, and it has different like resources in the back of it. But then it's mainly to help them learn new spiritual disciplines. So we'll do someone like silence and solitude. We'll do one where it's like, hey, what is a month of just gratitude? Of like every day I'm going to write something different down that I'm grateful for. How do I celebrate well, and like what does it actually mean to celebrate? And then it's also other things like going for prayer walks, or taking time to just do like Bible immersion and just read like an entire book of the Bible all at once, stuff like that. And so there's different challenges in there that are really cool. Yeah. And so we have a retreat once a year with our legacy students. So we made them do silence and solitude for 30 minutes. And I was very surprised that not many of them could do it. They were it was quite funny. I was like, 30 minutes is easy. I was like, this is going to be too easy for you guys. And then it was like, no, couldn't do it. I was like, oh boy, it was great. It's a really cool challenge though. Yeah. It was a really cool challenge.
Well, it's so interesting, because I think, what I'm hearing you say, if I can synthesize some of the things I'm hearing, is like the idea for us as volunteers, as people that care about students and their faith, if we can clarify the path a little bit, like, hey, it's not that this is the only way to follow Jesus or to grow in your faith as a high school student, but it could be a way, to try these practices, to learn skills, to be involved in ministry, to have a ministry mentor, somebody that, is coaching you. Like these are clear, and then they're a way that you might experience these things. And I think the result is that it sounds like you've experienced at your church, this has really been helpful for students, and that they're then actually taking steps in their faith journey because of your guys' effort in this regard. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, the interesting thing for any of us listening is that the specifics of what Lydia is doing, and I think if you can share some of your documentation, I know some people would love both to have a conversation with you about this, but also to see kind of some of the stuff that you're doing. But the principle, the idea of, hey, when we have students in our small group, when we have students in our ministries that we know are needing to be challenged to the next level, that we can actually challenge them and we can give them something specific. Even if, as a volunteer, you're like, I don't have a program, I don't have a long, complicated book. It might just mean, you could just give them or order them or tell them like a book about spiritual disciplines. And, we can suggest some if that's helpful, or, you can find one that has been meaningful in your life, and like give them a next step, give them a path, give them something specific. Because I think for students, they want to know, I'm doing the thing that is actually helpful. I'm actually taking action that is potentially going to be helpful for me. And let's not make it fuzzy. Let's try to make it really clear for them so that they can celebrate those kinds of wins. Would you affirm that? Is that kind of on track with what you guys have experienced, Lydia?
Yeah, I would agree. I would also add that part of that challenge, though, has to be high invitation as well. Of like, hey, we need to be partners in this. Of like, we're going to do this together. You're not alone in this. And just as like Jesus led, he was like, hey, come follow me. Just that's what you're inviting them into, of like that high invitation, high challenge culture.
That's interesting. So it's not something that you tell students to do. It's that you invite them to do it with you.
Yeah.
Oh,
they can, a lot of the time they end up going and doing, but it's like, hey, like, you're always going to be doing this with others and with me. Like I'm always there to help walk them through it, and because they can go do all of the things that we want them to do, but it's like, hey, we also want you to be people who are good leaders and people who are, call themselves Christians. So we want you to be representing yourself, the church, and Jesus really, really well. And so we want to do this with you together.
That's so fascinating, because I wonder, like, it's such a good word. I mean, theologically, we obviously believe this, that there's not a hierarchy in the family of God, that even though we play these roles as volunteers with our students, that we're brothers and sisters in Christ. And so the idea that we would actually lead them as what's the word I'm looking for? But like, I was going to say co-chairs, but that's not it. Co-heirs. There we go. Yeah, co-heirs. And the idea that, hey, this is me showing you what it's like to be a mature believer in Christ, is that as I'm growing, you come along and you grow with me. We learn together. But then that gives them a vision for what happens as they grow older, is that they're finding other people to bring along in the journey with them too. Like it's this wonderful cycle that as leaders, we're showing them what it means to follow Jesus. We're not telling them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's great. That's a classic quote, show, not tell. I don't know who said that originally, but that feels really right in this moment. That's great. Sorry, my own mind got to that point and I'm excited about it now. Lydia, fill us in. What are some other things that we haven't talked about around your student leadership program that you think, if there's a ministry, it doesn't matter what size it is, it could be 5 students, it could be 500 students. What do they need to know about some of the things that you guys are learning?
Have fun together. That's the biggest one. Having fun together builds amazing community. And I think sometimes we get so focused on teaching and like, hey, what are the students going to learn and how are they going to grow? And like, but sometimes we forget just that fun side of like, hey, like we need to build community. We need to have a meal together. We need to do an escape room together. We need to do something fun and wild and crazy. And sometimes we can, especially when it's something like serving, there's like the different elements, like you have to build your relationship with God, then you go out and you serve, but then it's also like, hey, we need to come together as one big group and have fun together and not just learn, but do life together. So I think that would be one of them. Yeah.
I love that so much. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah. Keep going.
And then I think the biggest thing for me, like, it doesn't matter how big your group is, like, relationship should always come first. Sometimes we can put problems ahead of people, and we need to remember that people come first. That the problems, we put them aside and we're like, hey, like as a person, like we know that you're going through stuff. We know that you're struggling with things, but it's like, hey, I care so much about you. I want to challenge you in this way. And it's like, I want to walk alongside you. I want to come alongside you as you walk through these different challenges, as you grow in your faith, because I care about you and I want to see you thrive in an environment. And so I think those are the biggest things that I would just focus on, is just having fun and then focusing on relationship, and lead out of your rhythms as well is something that I'm learning more and more of, like, hey, if I have bad rhythms, the people that I'm leading will also follow my bad rhythms. And so I had a conversation with an intern the other day, and he was talking about, oh, Lydia, I drank so much coffee today. You'd be so proud of me. And I was like, no, don't do that. That might not be wise. He's like, but you do it. And I was like, yeah, but I shouldn't do it. And so it's like, hey, like, how can I adjust my rhythms to make sure that I am also leading myself well, so that when they see me lead, they're like, hey, I want to follow her as she follows Christ. And just as Paul did it, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
It's such a good word, Lydia. I appreciate you opening things up to us. You'll send a few things that we can include for people. So if you take a look in the show notes, we'll have a link there. And certainly if you got questions for Lydia, I always include my email in the show notes, jeremy@youthworker.community, and can connect the dots there. But thanks so much for opening up the book on student leadership. I love what you guys are learning. And as you guys sort things out and continue to work in this realm, I think it's going to honestly serve lots of those of us listening, because we all have got students who need a little bit of next steps, need the next push. And this is certainly helpful for it. So thanks for your time, Lydia. And for everybody listening, thanks for joining us here at the Volunteer Youth Worker Podcast. We'll see you next time for another practical question that you're wrestling with in your ministry. But you guys are making an eternal difference. Keep on it and keep investing into the next generation.